Welcome to Encounter, where we celebrate putting faith into action and community leaders who live out compassion, grace, and love. We're a program of the Broome County Council of Churches that addresses food insecurity through CHOW and the Greater Good Grocery, provides hospital and jail ministry, builds wheelchair ramps, and assists neighbors with transportation and shopping services through Faith in Action volunteers. We invite you to the conversation. Encounter your neighbors as we learn to walk together in love and kindness.
Brothers and sisters, welcome to the Encounter program sponsored by the Broome County Council of Churches. I'm your host, Mark Kimpland, the senior pastor at the Endwell United Methodist Church. It's been a standing tradition of mine to take the months in the fall to welcome and introduce new pastors to the area. And I am thrilled that we continue that tradition today, as it's my honor and privilege to welcome to the Encounter program today the Reverend Teressa Sivers, the lead pastor at the Central United Methodist Church as of July 1st. Yes. Welcome.
Thank you.
I am so glad you are here. Glad that we were able to make this happen because this in sorts is kind of a homecoming for you back to the area and into this area. So why don't we start here, Teressa? Can you give us a little bit of your background? What's happened between birth and here you are sitting here on set with me? Can you kind of give us a snapshot of your background so our listeners and viewers can get to know you?
Sure. A few things happened from birth to now.
Yes.
I am from Mansfield, Pennsylvania. My parents are Barb and Bob McConnell, and my dad was a dairy farmer almost all my life. Retired into real estate for a few years and then officially retired. My mom was first grade teacher and the building principal at Charlotte Lapla Elementary School. Almost all my life, that's kind of where she worked. I have one beautiful sister who is living in Mansfield, Pennsylvania with her husband, and she has 2 adult children. And she is a school librarian at the elementary school and does really great work. I'm married. My husband, Doug, is a nurse practitioner up in the Ithaca, Cortland area. And we have 2 beautiful adult children. My son is a chef who lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. And my beautiful daughter is a 3rd grade teacher in Frederick, Maryland with her husband. And I started my career actually in social work and working especially with older adults and people with chronic mental health issues. And then went to seminary as a second career person, though pretty early in my second career. Went to Duke Divinity School down in Durham, North Carolina. Go Duke! A little bit of a Duke fan, just a little bit. Then after I graduated, I chose the Wyoming Conference, which was northeastern Pennsylvania up into some central New York regions, and served churches in the Pocono Mountains and in Oneonta, New York, and finally in Ithaca, New York, until I was appointed by the bishop here at Central United Methodist Church in Endicott.
And here you are.
Here I am.
Yes. Tell me a little bit about your call, because we both know this is not really something we choose per se, but called to do, which is that's a whole nother show. But can you just kind of share how did this call into ministry happen for you, as we all have our different calls and such? How was that process?
It was actually kind of a lifelong call. I had talked about being a minister as a child and then as an early teen. And then, in teenage years, I kind of got fixated on the things that teenagers do, and I didn't know any female clergy and didn't think maybe that was for me. And so went into the social work psychology field. And then my husband and I moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He was recruited there because they had a nursing shortage. And we had our first child, Devin, our beautiful daughter, and she was a preemie. She was born very early at 2.5 pounds. Oh, wow. And so we had been going to Methodist churches all along. I was born Methodist, and we were going to a beautiful church down in Baton Rouge. And so every day my husband would drop me off at the neonatal intensive care unit to spend the day with my daughter while he went to work his shift at the hospital. And one day, this pastor came through. He was blessing the babies. And he asked permission before he blessed my daughter, and then he did this beautiful prayer over her. And then he looked at me and went, God's been calling you, and you haven't been answering. And then he turned and walked away, and I never saw him again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, oh. And so I started having conversations with one of the pastors at the church, and explored my call and went through the candidacy process, and then we moved to Durham so that I could go to seminary at Duke.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, what a story. Oh, what
Yeah,
a call.
it was.
And you've never seen him?
I never saw the man again. I don't remember his name. I'm not sure he even gave me his name. It's kind of surreal. And I went home kind of shaking, and I told Doug when he arrived what had happened, and
Now, what was the time frame from that moment to, let's say, entering into seminary? What was the?
Just about a couple of years.
A few years, yes. Yes.
My daughter was about 2.5 when we moved to Durham, and she was an infant, when that happened.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Just very briefly, I went to my hometown pastor when I thought I had the call, and he spent 45 minutes trying to talk me out of it. and over the years, I've learned there's some real wisdom in that. There really is. Yeah.
They did not try to do that at Broadmoor United Methodist. Broadmoor was a 7,000 member United Methodist church in Baton Rouge, and so there was a caveat of pastors,
yes,
a lovely
yes,
pastoral staff,
yes.
and the pastor I worked with was really lovely, and really nurtured and helped me kind of explore leadership in the church first, and to do that for a couple of years while I was applying to seminary.
Yeah,
he did a great job.
What a blessing! What a blessing!
Yeah, it was.
And so you are here now.
I am here now.
With the wonderful folks at the Central United Methodist Church. Can you share a little bit about what's? I know that you're just beginning in such things, but we always hit the ground running.
That is right.
As United Methodist pastors on July 1st. Can you share with us a little bit about the ministry now at Central, and what's exciting, and things that you might want to tell our viewers and listeners about the ministry?
Oh, absolutely. The first thing that really struck me about Central Church was their heart for mission. They are so involved in serving the community.
Yes.
I work now at the Hot Meal program. It's every Thursday from 4:30 to 6, Shepherd's Supper. And I work on the fourth Thursday as one of the servers, and it's just wonderful to be able to work alongside both members of the church and people from the community who come in to serve. And it's just a wonderful ministry. I know they started out when they first began the ministry with only serving like 40, 50 people a night. And we've been over 300 many nights now. It's really, the need is really great.
Yes.
We also have the Clothing Center, which offers free clothing. It's by appointment on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but you can call the church office, and our wonderful administrative assistant, Alicia, will happily make an appointment for you, and you can come in and just be able to select from a wide variety of clothing, all sizes, all ages. Just a really wonderful way to be able to help the community, especially people who are starting a new job, or the season changes and now suddenly they need winter coats and boots and sweaters and things for the season. It's wonderful that it's all free. Excuse me. Right now we're also working with Visions Credit Union, doing collections of personal hygiene items, because that's a huge need in the area. Food stamps cannot be used to pay for any personal hygiene, and so it's expensive stuff a lot of times, and so we're working with Visions to collect lots of that to be able to share with the schools, be able to share with the community, some through the Clothing Center. And we're also working with them to collect luggage. A lot of people are having to shift and make transitions in their lives, whether they are children who are in foster care, people who are transitioning out of institutions, and they need to be able to bring their things not in a garbage bag, but in something that gives them dignity. And so we're collecting luggage and duffel bags to be able to share with those different nonprofits to be able to help people. Of course, we have beautiful worship services, 8:30 and 11, and we have this really phenomenal TV ministry that Mark Marino, a former pastor, is heading up. And we pay interns to come in and help run the tech booth, and they're high school students. And so they get paid a small stipend to come in, and they learn how to use the technology, and I just love to see them every Sunday morning. They're happy, they're excited, they just do a phenomenal job. Those are few highlights of some of the things we're doing.
And the tradition, the transition up to this point, it's always a tricky thing for pastors, no matter how long you've been in ministry and such things. Has that been? Can you describe that? 'Cause I don't think folks really fully understand how that feels.
How it feels.
Yeah, and it looks good on paper.
Yeah.
You know, walk in July 1st and wow. Can you kind of, how has that been even in the other places that you have served? Can you just touch on that?
First, I can say that I have never had a congregation not welcome me with beautiful, warm, open arms and just grace and joy. And it's always been a beautiful thing. This was a very unique transition for me. I had taken a personal leave for a couple of years because of some personal things going on, and was now ready to return and had been talking with our district superintendent, which is a pastor who oversees a region, about the fact that I was ready, and anytime that they had something to give me a call and let me know, because that's how it works every year. The bishop appoints people to pastors to churches. And I had been guest preaching for a beloved friend up in Geneva, and I was driving home, and if you've driven down from Geneva, you drive with Seneca Lake on one side and Cayuga Lake on the other, and it was a glorious May day, and I'm driving along, it's so beautiful. And I looked at God, and up at the sky, and said, God, I am so ready to be back in the church. Whenever you're ready, I'm ready. And I pulled in my driveway at home, and I got out of the car, and my phone rang, and it was the DS saying, Teressa, I have to talk to you. Yes. So I was like, God, that was really fast. We call that in the Methodist Church prevenient grace.
Yes, indeed.
That God is seeking us before we know even to turn and seek God.
Yes.
And so the transition was a little, nerve-wracking for me because I hadn't been in the pulpit full-time in a couple of years. But I was so excited. Central was just so welcoming, and Pastor Michelle, who I followed, was just wonderful. She gave me so much information, and just gently. A lot of times you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose as they share information at you. And she was just so, she kept saying, I feel like I'm doing, that drinking from a fire hose. I'm like, no, you're not. You're doing a beautiful job. But there's a mixture of joy and nerves, especially that first Sunday. You're like, so excited to be there, so excited to be able to be leading worship and being in worship with all these beautiful people, but also nervous because, is it going to be like falling off a bicycle and getting back on, or, how is this going to work? And it was, just like getting back into something that's my heart, so it's been beautiful.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Friends, we are here today, and as our guest today is the Reverend Teressa Sivers, the lead pastor at the Central United Methodist Church. I know that you have other very deep passions within ministry, areas of ministry that are very, very, very important to you. Can you highlight some of those that you've had either along the years that have brought you to this moment, or that you're still engaged in that are very passionate for you? Can you share some of that?
Absolutely. I have a huge passion for, I guess you would call it inclusion, that people feel fully included in society, that they feel fully accepted and loved in the communities in which they live and in the churches where they wish to worship. I very much am taken with Jesus' stories of creating those spaces where people can be welcomed back into their communities. A lot of times they were healing stories, restoring leprosy, healing blindness, other things, to allow people to fully integrate back into their culture. And so I did a lot of work with racial justice, helping us understand some of the barriers to racial inclusion in society, in communities, in the church. I worked with our annual conference as the head of a task force that became named Imagine No Racism, and has continued on lovingly without me, which was wonderful to see. I also feel very deeply about reaching out to those who are struggling to make ends meet, those who are homeless in our communities, and so creating avenues into support that are full of dignity and are easy to navigate. When I was in Oneonta, I worked with several other churches and with all the nonprofits in the city to create a program called Caring Connections, where people could come in and be interviewed and spend time with someone trained, a volunteer, and just learn their story and hear what they're struggling with and kind of dig a little deeper and see where the underlying roots are, and then help them navigate what nonprofits might be able to help them, And if it really is a one-time thing, like the car broke down and if I can get my car fixed, I'll be fine again.
Right.
We had 70 faith communities who had covenanted to be part of this group.
Wow.
And you could send out a mass email to those 70. They could each contribute what they could contribute. They'd send it to Caring Connections, and Caring Connections would pay the bill.
Wow.
And it was just a beautiful thing. And our return rate was so low. So many people didn't need to come back. It was a one-time thing. That's all they
what
needed.
A blessing. Yeah.
And not only did it do well in Otsego County, but it then was adopted by many counties around to be able to, and because we worked hand in hand with Catholic Charities to do that. And so the other Catholic charities began nurturing this in their counties. And it became just a wonderful way to help people navigate getting the help and support they need to get back on their feet or to be able to continue what they were doing, just to get through this one hard time that they were having. And then my latest passion has been working with the disabled community.
Okay.
While I was on personal leave, I worked with one of the independent centers in the area, just helping people with disabilities be able to get the supports and services they need. And became very passionate about the fact that the church is often not a place where people with disabilities can navigate easily, especially if their disabilities are invisible or not easily recognizable. People then just assume that they're normative and expect to see that behavior in them and then don't know what to do when they find out this person has a disability.
Yeah. Let me ask this. As we are here in this time serving churches in this day and age, what do you see as the biggest stumbling blocks to that inclusion that you speak of? Whatever that is for different people, what do you see as the biggest challenge for the church to get their head around when it comes to this complete, unconditional inclusion of God's
beloved
people?
Children.
Yes.
God's beloved children.
Yes. Yeah.
I think first and foremost, there's some fear in welcoming someone different. And it's hard to kind of picture in your mind what might need to happen to bring someone in who isn't already a part of that community. It's like when a family has a new baby. It completely changes your life.
Absolutely.
You know, everything is now ordered differently, and that's a very big change. And for churches, I think it becomes very, very intimidating to be able to create a space where those changes can happen. We get comfortable. We like things the way they are. We like to sit where we sit on Sunday mornings. We like to sing the songs that we know. We like those things. Sometimes it's also accessibility issues, being able to access the space, being able to be present in the space and hear everything, be able to see everything, all those kinds of pieces. But I think the biggest part is just kind of getting our hearts ready to accept a change, because it's an unknown and we don't know what it's going to look like.
And being prepared to accept that change wherever it's going to take us. I think at times is frightening and enlightening at the same time.
It is. It can be tremendously rewarding, but you have to kind of surrender a little bit into this moment and say, God, it's in your hands. This is going to be a change. We don't know where it's going, but we're just going to go where you lead. And that's terrifying, but it's also filled with possibility.
Yes. And it doesn't seem, at least in my experience, any change just doesn't seem to be innate in us. Like, all right, change, no work involved, just change. But there's real deep-seated, intentional work in that change, whatever that is. Well, so let me just go a little bit deeper on this. What do you see as a pastor with the vast experience you have in the disciplines that you've been about? What's the church's biggest hurdle? What do you see as their maybe biggest opportunity? Biggest stumbling block? Challenge? What do you see, or maybe you see a few of them?
I see a few of them.
Yes. No. Could you tell me 1 through 12? But could you highlight a few that you've seen, that you've witnessed, that you have maybe lived through?
I think the first one is that willingness to change.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, we are in a different day and age. A lot of our churches are experiencing that decline
Yeah.
in numbers and financial resources. Many churches have beautiful buildings that they're struggling to care for because they don't have the funds anymore, and the buildings are aging.
Yes.
And so I think there needs to be almost like a whole paradigm of change that needs to happen. It needs to be just exactly what we're all about, with a lot of deep, intensive listening to the communities around us.
Yes.
and who they are, what do they need, and that's scary stuff, and it requires a lot of trial and failure. But we learn from failure. That's how we
Yeah,
learn and grow.
yes.
So I think that's one of our big stumbling blocks and opportunities. We get to experiment and reach out and try new things and fail.
Yeah.
And pick ourselves up, learn from those failures, and try something different, and be able to do those things. I think maybe that's the biggest piece, is just being willing to change, willing to make the risk, know there's going to be failures, and pick yourself back up.
It's interesting you say that, and I read a certain quote that healthy churches stop doing things. In other words, things that may have worked 20 years ago, healthy churches at times not only change into something, but change maybe what they had been doing because it wasn't really serving a purpose at that time. And to have the intuition and the spiritual understanding of when to start something, when to stop something, because stopping things can be a change.
Right. And being able to discern what needs to change and what are the roots of who we are.
Yes.
That where is that boundary and that balance? Keeping ourselves rooted, but also being willing to be flexible and change.
Yeah.
It's a careful dance, and we
Yeah.
have to do it together. It's not just the pastor's
Absolutely.
job. It's the congregation and the pastors together who need to have that conversation and do that dance together.
Yeah, great way of putting that. Great way of putting that. Friends, our guest today is Reverend Teressa Sivers, the lead pastor at the Central United Methodist Church. There may be listeners and viewers of this program and such things that would like some information about the Central United Methodist Church. How would they reach out to the church to get information, or may want to become part of the worshiping community? Can you give some information about that for them?
Sure. We are at 17 Nanticoke Avenue in Endicott. We have worship at 8:30 a.m., very informal, very relaxed, kind of the coffee cup, sanctuary congregation. And then we have a little bit more formal worship at 11 o'clock in the larger part of the sanctuary. And that one is live streamed. So you can go onto our website, which is centralumcendicott.org, and be able to watch on live stream. We also record it, and put it on YouTube, so it's available on YouTube at any time, and it is shown on cable TV on Sunday mornings and Monday evenings, if you would like to watch it that way. And of course, you can always email the church office at centralumcendicott.org, or give us a call, and I would give you the phone number, but I don't remember it this morning.
You've done very well. That's good. I'm impressed.
You can Google it.
That's very good. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but well done. I'd like to ask this question, and I've asked it to many of my colleagues on the show and such things, and I'm always intrigued about their answers and such. What gets you out of bed in the morning as a pastor? And the second part of the question is, what makes you almost want to put the covers over your head and stay in bed? You can go with either one first, but what gets you out of bed, and what makes you want to stay in bed?
Well, what gets me out of bed is that I'm a very joie. In Louisiana, I learned it as joie de vivre, the joy of life.
Okay.
I've always been that person. I'm one of those obnoxiously morning people. I set the alarm this morning for 5:15. I was up at 5. Turned off the alarm, said, okay, I'm up. I love to be outside in nature. I need that time.
Yes.
And so I get up early. I get my beautiful dogs, who are our other children, and we go down the rail trails, and we, sometimes running, sometimes walking. The Chihuahua doesn't go with me when we run.
Okay.
He still stays in bed. But, and so that really is that's my time with God. We have lovely conversations. There's such beauty. I have some devotional time, my coffee, of course. And then I don't know what I can say makes me want to pull the covers over my head, because I'd like to get up in the morning.
Yes,
but there are those times when I want to go to bed at like 7 because it's just been a day. And a lot of times it's because I didn't manage my boundaries well. I caved into that idea that I have to do it and I have to do it now and it has to be me. And I'm just, no, I'm going to bed, I'm done.
Yes.
And so it's just a reminder sometimes that I need to really be able to say no once in a while and say, nope, I'm going to take a break right now, I'm going to rest. And those nights when I really want to go to bed as soon as I get home is because I just didn't balance well. I didn't keep a little bit more control on my own schedule and my own to-do list.
Yeah, that's a continuing learning process.
It
and
is.
Such.
And there's times you can't. I mean,
Right.
if it's been a tragedy or something horrible happened,
Yes.
you have to respond.
Yes.
Yeah, but many times when I feel that way, it's because I didn't, do the work of taking care of myself during the day.
Yeah, and that's hopefully the wisdom we learn along the way.
Right.
There are 5 things to do in this moment, but
I'm not going to do all 5. So which ones am I going to do? Yeah.
Which 4 are going to be put on the test right
Multitasking
now?
is just a myth.
Yes.
That's doing 3 things poorly at the same time.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely, and learning that, especially in a new environment, and all of that is tricky. Yeah, great learning environment for change, isn't that wonderful? Well, we've got about a minute and a half left, and I want to give you the last word. If there's anything on your heart, your spirit that you want to share with our listeners and viewers, and this has been a blessing. So if you can take a moment and just kind of share whatever it is you'd like to share at this time.
I think for me, I just love to encourage people to answer their calling. Everybody has a call, even if they're not deeply religious people. There's something that's tugging on your heart that's urging you to do something, be something, and do it. Serve your community, reach out in love to your neighbors, create the environment that we all want to have, where people are valued and loved, and people are at peace. So listen to that call, that little nudge that's happening inside you, and answer.
Yeah.
Explore, take the risk.
Yeah. There's something about being open to that.
And
seeing where, no matter where we are in life, just to be open to that voice when you're in the neonatal place and it says, "Hey,
when you are captive audience,
not listening." And it's just amazing how that happens time and time again. That God puts people in our lives, and those are the sacred moments. There's no doubt about that.
That's right.
Teressa, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
This has been wonderful, and the Central United Methodist Church and our conference are blessed by your leadership. And
I'm blessed to be a part. So thank you.
Fantastic. Friends, again, I want to thank the Reverend Teressa Sivers, the lead pastor at the Central United Methodist Church. You have the information if you'd like to reach out to her or to the good folks there or to the office to find more information. May God bless you as we continue this journey of life, and be kind to one